That. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know it is a beautiful night in most of Michigan, so thanks for hopping on a Zoom call. I hope you got the windows open and the sun shining through. I'm Drew at You See Him Pronouns, and I'm the digital organizer for Michigan Education Justice Coalition. And the training that we are going to do tonight is called Simple Steps for Organizing in Your School District. And it is a basic overview training of how to organize. I'm going to put the agenda right here in the chat and the slideshow, which my coworker Kath is projecting right now. Thank you, Kath. All right, so those links are in the chat right now. If you want to open up that slideshow, Kath, that'd be great. Actually, you know what? Let's do the Jamboard. I think that makes more sense. I'm going to also send you, so here we go.
Hold on one second, Drew, because
You're
I
good.
thought I had it open. And so let me just double check that this is working, because for some reason it wasn't. Sorry. Are you guys seeing this now?
I'm seeing the slideshow, but not the if you click over to the tab to the left there.
Wait, you can still hear me, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
But
just
when I
go
do-
up to the issues in our schools tab.
Excuse me. McKee said that she's in the waiting room.
Yep, I just added her.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome anytime.
What'd you say, Drew? Sorry.
So go to the tab that you have, the issues in our schools tab. Yep,
Oh,
that's our Jamboard
you just
there.
want to do the Jamboard. Okay.
Yep, let's do the Jamboard first. Yep. So
And you're
this
seeing
is
that full screen, right? Okay. All right.
Yep.
Sorry about that.
So no problem. So this is a tool that we use. I'm gonna send that link one more time for McKee's. This is a tool that we use to kind of just show ideas right in front of us so that everybody can look at them. It's called a Jamboard. So Kath, you mind showing everybody how to use this just with that sticky note? Yep, and then just type whatever the answer to the question is onto there. I see everybody's in right now. Our question to start out today is, what issues are your school district and community facing that you'd like to solve? So basic thing, whether that's transportation issues, literacy, curriculum, book bans, anything like that. Feel free to steal what I just said, but what are the issues in your community, in your school district that you want to work on?
We're supposed to go to the right on it.
What's that?
Okay, bring it to the right on it. We're supposed to go to the pencil.
Oh, you know what? If you're on your phone, Simone, I don't think this will show up. So if you want to just tell us yours, that's cool with me.
Yes, mine will be mold in these schools. Our children are being left to face with mold in different classrooms because they not pulling up old carpets. Molds in the bathroom from running faucets and leaks that they just patched up, didn't really fix. And then of course literacy. Our children are not exposed to books that they need in order to learn. They just get handed packets. Like my son, he's in the first grade. He brought a packet home yesterday, and it had some type of math in there that I didn't even remember. So I'm like, they doing this in first grade? And the lack of security around the school when children are working or walking to school, they have to be faced with pit bull dogs. They don't have, you know how back in the day when we went to school, we had crossing guards and people out there that we knew that had on a yellow jacket that can see dogs from far away. Now it's just you walk into the school, you just walk into the school by yourself. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have transportation. So a lot of kids that's in first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade are forced to walk to school, and they got to be faced with not only predators, but pit bull animals as well. And then when you call and try to call the Humane Society to come and get the dogs, they tell you, oh, well, you have to pay for it. And I don't think that that's fair.
No, absolutely not.
And then also, I'm sure I was just on a meeting about the school board and the money allocated, like where is the money allocated for and stuff like that. My thing is why they don't have washer and dryers in these schools. So when kids do come to school, instead of getting bullied, y'all can wash the kids' clothes. Because, you know, back in the day when we went to school, our schools had a washer and dryer, and a lot of kids that were getting bullied can go to the principal office, you know, they wash their clothes and stuff like that. But I think nowadays a lot of these schools are just wanting to put parents in a predicament where CPS have to get involved, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, so many parents have so much on their plate already. It's like the school, the way we envision schools is like, you know, let's help the parents and families out with these basic services like that.
Yes. And then also me and my team was trying to come up with school bucks, like a way that we can get school bucks for the schools in order to like get them washer and dryers, have a food pantry for kids that don't have food at home. They can go into the pantry and get a box of noodles or some canned goods. Nowadays in these schools, it's all about, oh, well, your mom not doing this, your family not doing that. Okay, we about to get CPS involved. And a lot of people don't know when you get CPS involved, they don't help you with anything.
No.
They just investigate you for 30 days and then that's it. You could be telling them like, my light's about to get cut off, my water about to get cut off, and they don't care about that because they say, oh, we don't have no funding. Y'all do have funding, y'all just pick and choose who y'all want to give them to. So I think
absolutely. Yeah.
I think the school can do better. I know me and McKees was talking the other day, and she said that it used to be where the school had funding set aside for low income families that's facing challenges. They don't even have that anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we can afford it. It's just the money's not being put toward it.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you for raising that. And McKees, I see you. You see if your hand raised, McKees?
Yes, I have my hand raised because y'all talk about the challenges that we are having in our community. Our challenges is that our parents are having literacy issues too. So how can our parents help with children homework when they don't even understand this work themselves? We don't have programming for them, which is hard for us, you know, as we sit in these meetings and we are fighting for all the same causes. That is a challenge. And then sometimes children and parents are late to school because you got to get multiple children ready. That's another issue in our community. So their tardiness and all of that stuff is affected by how many children they have to get ready and how many different school zones that they have to get to on time.
Absolutely. I mean, it all stacks up, right? I mean, it's really hard to make these things happen. And no, I appreciate you mentioning the literacy aspect too, because I think it's these type of things are generational and they're cyclical, right? So if, you know, kids can't get proper education and reading abilities and stuff, like that just trickles down and things like that. And, you know, their parents can't help them with homework. So no, I appreciate you raising all that. This is all great. Not great, but you know, it's all good to know, right? I'm gonna highlight a couple of things that we have here. So yeah, we mentioned safety for young children, parent literacy issues and parent engagement. Facilities are in bad shape. They're moldy. Special education funding is something we need more. Need more funding for literacy programs and changes to our literacy programs, right? The way we teach reading. Transportation, as well as bullying and harassment. And Simone, I see you have your hand raised again.
Yes, I also wanted to touch on some other things that was an issue. So I was in a meeting with Governor Ratcher when she said that she had allocated 18 million for transportation for the children that's in the the 3-year-old, 4-year-old, which is GSRP. But what about schools that got to go to outside sources for transportation? She don't know how much these schools are paying for buses by the day. So how can this sector of little kids get this amount of money, but the schools that been in business for over 10 years can't even get half on the bus thing. And then also I wanted to highlight the fact that children when they go to school and they tell adults that they're being bullied, they're also being pushed aside. They're not being taken as serious. And then for me, my son's school told me once I enrolled him that, yeah, somebody's going to be there to walk him to class. I don't even know y'all like that. How can I trust y'all to walk my son to class, when I was dropping them off and they wasn't even doing that? So it's like they're trying to force the parents out the school instead of having the parents in the school. They only want us around doing count day and the survey. And I don't think that that's fair.
No, not at all. No, absolutely not. And yeah, that's another great point. It's like we want to see that greater parent engagement in the schools, and schools making decisions with the parents in mind. I mean, it's just, I think everything you've said here is like points directly to that, right? It's, you need the parents' help to make the schools better for the kids. So that's great. Thank you all for that.
We bringing up these issues because we've seen it too many times, and the reason why the parents have been pushed out of these buildings is because the parents haven't been showing up. When we have those meetings in these school buildings and our parents don't show up, that gave them enough amp to push us away from the building because they figure we're not going to show up anyway. And the very few of us that shows up, we're the ones that's feeling the pain. But the ones that don't have time to show up, they're seem like it's okay, but it's not okay. We just need more people to back us when we're fighting that issue, is that I need to be able to see what my child is doing for myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and like you said too, it's like when the meetings aren't planned with parents in mind and stuff, they're not able to show up for that. And yes, it makes it easier to push them out. This is all really like good stuff to take stock of here. Kath, do you mind if we go to the slideshow and we'll start it up here? Oh, Marie, yep.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and second that last comment about you know, the challenge of getting parents into the school when the teachers, you know, want them for a particular, you know, whether it's parent-teacher conferences or whether it's evening programs that explain, you know, what's going on at school. And, you know, I think that one of the challenges is that the school doesn't think about, you know, they decide how they want it to run and how they want it to how they want to schedule it, but they're not really thinking about what are the parents' needs. How can we, you know, how can we get parents involved in a way that works for them?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it needs to be a part of, and when we're doing this type of stuff, we need to be planning around that. That's why, you know, I know not every time is perfect for everybody, but we made this in the evening, right? Because I know a lot of the folks on this call, I'm sure most of you have kids in school. You know, so I think our leaders in schools need to be thinking of that type of thing as well, and be thinking about work schedules and things like that. So that's great. Kath, do you mind if we go to slide 4 on the what will we cover today? Awesome, cool. So we started that out. I think it's always good, as you'll learn later when we're in organizing, doing that listening to each other and really explaining the issues that we have in our schools. Because right, that's what, taking any sort of action is always going to start with having a problem, right? You know, so there's something we want to improve. We're also going to go over today info about our organization to give you, you know, info about where we're coming from. We're going to talk about school funding in Michigan and how that works. We're going to talk about how the decisions are made in our schools and a task list for you to start getting involved with your school. So you can go to the next slide, Kath. So to give you a briefing, you know, we are Michigan Education Justice Coalition. We were founded 2013 as a statewide community and union partnership. And having that coalition of different organizations around the state is where we get our power, right? So we build with local unions, the teachers and educator unions, community groups, parent groups, things like that. We have about, I think that number is even outdated now, 32. We're pushing 40 organizations around the state. They're very different, of course. Some have paid staff, some are entirely volunteers. And our, oh, sorry, I just got a text from one of our folks here trying to get in. Sorry about that. Part of our work is we helped secure a $700 million recovery package for Detroit schools in a lawsuit that also ended emergency management and introduced limits to the charter authorizing in Michigan. So that's something that we did early on with our partner 482 Forward out of Detroit. And all of our work is guided by our Healthy and Healing Community Schools platform. That is guided by an anti-racist and anti-oppression framework. So if we go to the next slide, I'll explain that platform a little bit. And this is basically, you know, a couple of the things that we go by when we're doing this work, right? So we want to talk about how our public education system should be fully funded. It should prioritize and invest in psychological safety and well-being strategies. So, you know, really making sure kids feel safe in their schools. Mental health care is implemented in schools. Kids of all backgrounds feel safe, right? We want to reform standardized testing and have curriculum that it addresses the real things that have happened in our country's history, right? Things like, you know, the history of slavery and the genocide of Native Americans, right? And things like that are things that we want to really address in our schools. The other one is students must drive the future of Michigan's education system. So we do a lot of youth organizing, making sure that the students in our schools really have a voice in those schools is super important to us. And then the last thing is public school priorities must reflect the values and needs of students, educators, and community members like parents and caregivers. So that's why we have y'all on this Zoom tonight. That's why we do that youth organizing work. And that's why we work with the staff of schools. So we can make sure that our schools represent all of those folks, right? It's very important to us. All right, we can go to the next slide here. And to show, right, like some of those issues that y'all talked about on our Jamboard are the things that Michigan residents want to see funded in our schools, right? So I know we mentioned mental health, support services like having more counselors and parapros, health. So that could be things like school health clinics, transportation. I know we had on there, funding our facilities to make sure that mold is not in there. Special ed for sure, readiness. So career services and things like that. And addressing trauma. So that mental health care. And if you see on here, the most, like the majority of people are saying we don't want funding for policing in our schools that are making kids feel less safe and things like that. We don't want the money for standardized testing because I think as a lot of you know, they are not accurate readings of how kids are doing in schools. It really is not. So most Michigan residents don't want to see money go toward that stuff. So we try to address the things that Michigan residents actually want to see funded. We'll go to the next slide, please, Kath. So there is a lack of equitable funding and resources that are at the heart of a lot of these issues, right? So as a lot of our work, we say that we want more funds in the Michigan School Aid Fund. And that should be reflective of what this stuff actually costs, right? And we want to see a weighted funding formula. So when we say equity, we mean based on need, right? So we realize that maybe a school in, the Upper Peninsula might not need as much school as a school, in Oakland County, let's say. You know what I mean? So there might be different needs based on schools, and we should be funding our schools that way. So that is basically about MEJC. I'm going to pass it over to Safara. And we are going to do the next Jamboard and hear from y'all again.
And I can just speak while people are putting things in the Jamboard, but I just kind of want to add off of what Drew is saying about the funding, because right now we're planning for our lobby day at the end of the month, and we like as an MEJC, although I am the education justice organizer for Student Advocacy Center, which is a member of MEJC. We're still joining MEJC in what we have helped them discern as an equitable funding budget. And it is thought out to highlight the disparity of these unweighted formulas. The counties that I work in, Washtenaw and Jackson alone, are extremely different in their needs. And even though they have some big ones, like transportation is pretty across the board, by each district, sometimes they allocate different like property tax and millage to those different buckets like transportation. So it is a very intricate little web that school funding is. And MEJC has a proposed budget asked for the state's budget. But as we're looking at the Jamboard, we want to know what and who do you think makes decisions in your schools? So that could be, think of the power structures that exist within your schools, and who do you think those decision makers are? And then what are the ways that we can impact change? So we're looking at how can you, as a community member, a parent, maybe an educator, public resource person, how can you enact change with those decision makers? And if you want to talk out loud, that's fine.
Okay. I thought, keyword thought, that the superintendent and the school funder, I forgot what's their title. I thought they were the ones that get things done, but I found out that it's really the social workers that get things done, that speaks on the parents' behalf and go into these meetings and say, oh, this is what the school needs and this is what the school needs, because I've been in several situations where I've been telling the superintendent or writing the superintendent, making phone calls to the superintendent, and nothing has got done. But as soon as I go talk to the social worker, it seems like everything that I tried to tell the superintendent, the social worker got done. So now I'm thinking it's the social worker.
Yeah, a lot of the times I think a lot of the time parents especially are kind of just like distanced from even being able to identify who the decision makers are. A lot of the time, especially when districts, I think Jackson is really, really, really guilty of this, when they are very aware that they are not acting in accordance to what is either legally what they're beholden to, or even ethically what they could be participating in. They try to distance themselves a lot from the parents in the community because they just don't want to be accessible. And shout out to all social workers, because they really, especially the ones who work in public education and public spheres, it is a doozy having to navigate so many power structures when a lot of the times they're just trying to make sure that students are okay, that they can get what they need and are treated like a person.
Absolutely. On this one, do we have any more answers for who makes decisions in our schools? A couple in there. Just want to open it up.
I really feel like our government makes more of these decisions than we do, and not the teachers either, because our teachers are so underpaid. They're not even making decisions. So I feel like it's got something to do with government and state legislature that's making these decisions. So that will always be ever in my forefront.
That's very true. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and it depends on what kind of decisions you're talking about. If you're talking about funding decisions, that's one bucket of people. And if you're talking about um, decisions about how things run in a school, then particular school, then you're getting down to, say, the principal level and, the administration within a particular school.
So
Very
that's
true.
the thing with Michigan. If we not invited to these meetings, we can't see who structured this administrative team. So I
Mhm.
think we should all be aware of this whole team that they're talking about, because at the end of the day, if they're all making these decisions, then we need to be on top of their necks too. I'm not, we writing letters to our legislators, we write letters to state and government and all this stuff. But if these are the administrators making decisions, then we need to be putting our foot on their necks as well. Because you
Mhm.
can't make a decision without parents. Y'all never even asked us our opinion or how we
Mhm.
feel.
Mhm. Right. So it sounds like, to me, it sounds like we all, but particularly parents, there needs to be some transparency for parents on how the administrative, you know, structure is built within a school, within an individual school, within a school district, and then who is responsible for what kind of decisions. And I think that's something that parents need to have more education about so that when they do have questions, they know who the right person is to go to.
Exactly.
I believe Simone, did you have your hand up?
No, I was trying to do a heart reaction, but my hand ended up.
Okay. No worries. Drew,
Love
if you're
that.
okay, I think we can continue on, yeah?
Yeah, you want to go to the next Jamboard thing here? We'll open up some ideas. So, Kat, if you can go over to the next one. Awesome.
And some of y'all were already kind of hitting on that. I
Mm.
think Marie, what you were talking about. So the question is, what are the ways that we can impact change? And I think Marie, you were hitting on that just a second ago of knowing, like being able to name who the pack, the administrative pack, I should say, the rat pack, the decision makers in your local districts, absolutely. And there is a lot of, hell, the school board we elect, like you would hope you would know the name of some of the people that are there. But what are some other ways maybe that we can enact change?
We can get connected with other parents that's having the same issues that we're having. So that way we can show up in numbers. And then also we can connect with different organizations like you mentioned 48214. They do great. I go to all of their meetings. I was just at one where they had the legislative people come out and we sat at a table and we told them about our problems. I think connecting with organizations like that, and of course Detroit Champions for Hope. I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of them, but they is pretty involved in school and school organization as well, organizing and helping families become their best champion for their children and helping them navigate around the school system. I think just connecting with local organizations that's fighting for the same thing, great education, great community.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. Of course, yeah. We want you to get connected with organizations, absolutely. And hopefully this training, our small and mighty group will be able to get some more base info, what it means to work within community from this training. And hopefully we'll be able to answer some of the preliminary and foundational questions that may arise when you're wanting to start that work.
I hear what you're saying, and it starts with us in our homes first. So just
Mm.
like Simone brung me in, that means that I need to go tell somebody else. But see, she told one person, I'm about to tell 3 people. So at their next meeting, you'll have more people. See, this is what the chain do. We need a whole chain of people. We don't need one person because one person don't make a stand by themselves. Now, I'm not gonna say changes don't come, but what we need a mighty force. We need the people. So it starts at home first. And if you're an influencer, you call 5 people with your phone. If you know 5 of them not gonna show, then call 25. So 5 of them will show up.
Agreed.
I need you to lead this training
Okay.
next time.
Yeah.
That's
Ag-
That's
perfect.
Yeah.
confidence building, baby.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You know, I've watched as I've become more of a politics watcher in the last few years. You know, I've watched how individuals who stick up and, you know, try to advocate for something, you know, they pick people up, they pick people off when they stand up one at a time. It's a lot harder to pick people off, you know, when you show up 25 and 35 and 50 at a time.
Very true.
Absolutely. Would we can hear Simone, you can go ahead and then we'll probably move on. Yes.
Okay, I was just letting you guys know that I have someone else joining. Her name is Sharon Kilgore. I don't know if she's in the waiting room.
Oh, I got yep. I got her in there.
I think she's in.
Okay.
I'm in. Thank you.
That's what I be
Simone,
talking about.
Simone's
That's what
on
I'm
it.
saying.
Simone is really on it. Nice to thank you for joining us, Sharon.
You welcome.
Send you the agenda.
Kath, you want to go ahead and move back to the slides? So we're gonna see some of the answers for decision makers in just a moment. And then we are going to transition to more of the meat of what we're talking about, which is organizing. And I will transition us into that discussion in just a moment. Yeah, that's perfect, Kath. So a few of y'all were already hitting it on the nose with the school board, superintendent, that kind of rat pack, as we referred to them. And the huge decision makers in our districts is our school boards. And lucky for us, they're elected, so we choose our school board. Not so lucky is that people have no idea what the school board does. So here's a few things that they take care of. So the big ones are curriculum. So we're looking at what is the format and what is the content of what our children are learning. And that goes as well, the ISD. If your district has an ISD, typically special education things will also come from the ISD, and there are different resources of how all different. Michigan does their ISDs very different, y'all, and it is you definitely, if you are more curious about how those work, I would absolutely go down to your ISD office and see how it is done, because they differ across the state for sure. But curriculum is a big one that the school boards will vote on. We have discipline, so we're looking at policies on how kids are being disciplined. What is the process? What is the due process? Are they? What is the suspensions? All of the intricacies and interpretations of what a discipline worthy thing is. That is all being decided by the school board, as well as transportation. And transportation is where we dip our toes into some funding stuff that is a little bananas and a little lost in the weeds for this one, for this training. But a lot of the time, transportation is the thing that gets the least amount of money. And a lot of the time, districts will have different millages that are tied to transportation. A lot of districts sometimes try to save money by cutting bus routes, which is what that happens a lot in Detroit and happens a lot in Ypsilanti as well. So it's rural and city wide that will happen. And then we're looking at budget, and that's just how the allocations of the funds work. Who gets what is prioritized. Typically, people try to rally a lot of different amendments to set policies that the school board votes on when budget is also getting voted on. So it can get a little intense. I know like places like Grand Rapids and Ann Arbor and Detroit, there are some fierce school board meetings that happen there. And so that is typically it's all around certain things. So like banned books would fall under curriculum typically. Seclusion and restraint will fall under discipline. Transportation, pretty evident. And then budget is you're looking at facility stuff, you're looking at different millages that could be proposed to the school board, all of those things. And I can go to the next slide. Can I get to the next slide?
Sorry about that. I'm seeing that, but now it says my screen is paused,
Oh,
which is weird. Okay, let me stop and start again.
there we are.
You seeing it now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm going to transition us into the meat of what we're here for, and that is how do we get involved? What is organizing? What are the simple steps? And we want to open up with this just kind of generalized what is organizing question. And we come up with this quote: organizing is taking collective action to solve the root cause of a problem by turning the resources you have into the power you need to win the change you want. And as we go into this training, we are going to throw out some terms, but the key ones you want to think about when you're thinking about organizing is like campaigns. So you're finding those key issues, whether it's transportation or special education curriculum, XYZ. You are developing a campaign, you're organizing a campaign to advocate for this topic, whatever the infraction is in your community, that is what you're advocating for. And so in this training, we are, sorry, actually, let me back that up because I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting too excited. So on the next couple of slides, we're going to see the kind of what and why of organizing, beginning with this quote. And when we organize by running these different campaigns and continuously building power, we believe, just like this picture with the many fish in the one big fish, this is the embodiment of what it means to take our resources as a community, as a collective, and chase after the decision makers or the things that are causing harm in our community or our kids. And we are able to take down those bigger problems and be able to feel that sense of community pride, but also power. And there is, I know many of us who have been in organizing for a while, or even people that are new to it, you always feel connected to that power. The ability to see a collection of people come together and be able to achieve something like funding allocation, something like the end of zero tolerance, which we got to see in 2017 in the state of Michigan. These are all huge things, but also live in the small things. And thank you, Kath, for going to the next slide. Perfect transition. But I always, oh no, sorry, you were on the right one. The second quote. Yeah, thank you. So this is a quote that I hold very near and dear to me. If you've never read Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, it is amazing. But this, to me, is very important as organizers and community stewards to hold on to why we are called to this work. So this quote: freedom is not an ideal located outside of man, nor is an idea which becomes a myth. It is rather the indispensable condition for the quest for human completion. This, I think, in many spaces, when, especially, I think, I can't remember who hit on it earlier, maybe it was McKees, I believe. But I think when we start thinking about organizing, or even sometimes some of us who are in the meat of it and have been doing it for a while, we get really lost in this idea of like the big issue. And it can feel really infantilizing, or it can feel very hopeless, especially, for folks who are going to school board meetings, or people who are showing up and you're like flabbergasted at why people aren't showing up, because it's clear to you why this is so important. And I think it's easy to get lost in that. And so this quote, to me, I hold very near and dear in my community work and organizing, because it reminds me that like there is a realm that there is a world where we win. There is a universe, a timeline, a plane of life that there is the appropriate funding for every child in the state, in the country. And we need to act as if that is our lifetime. And we need to act as if that is our reality that we're trying to achieve. And that it isn't this kind of far off, distant idea, but it is something that you can tangibly do, and you can tangibly be working and be committed to that work and that kind of community stewardship by participating in organizing. And yeah, I hope that hits with you. If you've never read, again, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, it is really incredible. There's also he has one about like subversive teaching and education that is like, I think it's called Freedom of Education or something. It is really, really great. And Kathy, you can go to the next one now. Thank you so much. So to reiterate, because I could go on this forever and ever and ever. In every organizing campaign, all organizing should be done in teams. It should be done together. And I know that many of us like will go to school board meetings, and maybe we will chat with somebody who maybe made a public comment that you agree with, or you have somebody that has come with you before, and you keep inviting them, and maybe they, iffy or wishy-washy or whatever. But I encourage you to be steadfast in continuing to invite people. Simone Dunn invited 3 people on the spot. Okay. So we know that there is a kind of dedication and a kind of discipline that comes with working in teams and constantly reaching out to your community to develop leadership in that, and to foster something that is mobilized. Organizing, community education, mutual aid creation, and even just simple community gatherings all have something in common, is that you cannot separate the experience and stories of others from the work, and vice versa. When we hold each other, as in our community, when we hold each other in reverence and accountability, so like, hey girl, you said you'd come with me, let's go, like I'm gonna hook you in. Yeah, holding each other in reverence and accountability in order to steward successful organizing. And this means a commitment and dedication to tolerance. I think that's a big one that people tend to forget about, is that like some folks want to get into school organizing and might not be as political. I think Marie, you had said that you'd only really started reading up on things in the last few years, and there is a whole political spectrum that exists with people who do education organizing. So it is very important to be in commitment to an anti-oppressive and anti-racist organizing set, and that sometimes needs tolerance, and then problem solving, conflict resolution, leadership development, inoculation, all of these things, while developing a successful campaign can be done solo. It is the most fruitful and is the most impactful when being done in transformative connection to your community. And Drew will take it over on this next slide.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sapar. That's like such a great 360 view of what organizing is. So I appreciate that. In organizing, we have something called an organizing cycle. And it's something we call it a cycle because we are constantly doing all parts of this over and over again, in succession with each other. So the first one is something that we did at the beginning of this training. That was listening. That is where, whether it's on a Zoom and I'm having people list their issues that they have, right? But that can be giving a survey out to a community, or that could be like Safara said, just talking to somebody at a school board meeting or at kid pickup, and just asking them, what are the issues that you have? What are things really like for you? Right. So that's how we kind of figure out what the issues that we want to work on are. The next step is doing that research and developing some kind of strategy about it. So whether that's looking into, the bus routes, right? Or how the buses get funded and things like that. That's when we start to dig into some of this stuff and then begin to plan, how are we going to begin to solve it? So out of that planning comes some kind of action, right? Usually it's a direct action. So that's going to be the start to our solution to that issue. So you maybe get together with your group and you think, hey, we want to get 50 people to show up at a school board meeting in support of better school lunches, right? It's anything, right? Anything that we want to solve. Plotting that action out. So then after that day of action comes, we're going to do our evaluation. We're going to say, hey, what did we do right? What could we have done better for next time? And then there's that celebration part of it, because it's really hard work. It's really draining. No matter how your action turns out, you need to like really spend that time with your team and pat yourselves on the back and just realize, hey, it was hard to do this and we should be proud of ourselves for doing it. Right. And then we start back over, right? We're always doing that listening. We're always researching those issues, having the action, evaluating over and over again. This cycle is very important to getting this stuff done successfully. We can go to the next slide. So we're going to explain each of these in a little more depth here. So this is definitely the important step to making a goal around an issue and recognizing that issue. And so, yeah, taking like a survey of folks, so you can send that out maybe on a Facebook page if you have one. And, you could also do this through like a petition, things like that. This is kind of where you start to get your people together, right? If I'm in a certain community and I realize there are a lot of people who are, let's say they're pissed off at the school lunches. I'll just mention that again, right? They realize their kids are not getting good food in the schools, right? I'm going to maybe send out a petition, or I'm going to start talking to people. I'm going to find all of my other people who feel the same way as me. And we're going to get together and realize what exactly do we want to change about school lunches, whether that's having some kind of quality control person or getting more funding for that. Right. That's the first step is starting to just listen and talk to folks about that. All righty. And we'll go to the next one. So like I said earlier, this research and strategy part, is we're going to figure out why this issue is occurring, right? So if the school lunches are bad, what is going on? Did they not get that funding that they need? Things like that. And this is actually a really good point here that we're going to touch on in a sec. This is a great spot to grow our leadership. So when we're doing this type of work, we want to not just be doing everything ourselves, right? I think as we said earlier, we are way stronger in a team. So this is where we can start kind of doling out responsibilities. I can say, hey, I'll look into the budget. Safara, why don't you go look at some different policies and things like that, right? And starting to ask the questions that are relevant to the work, and getting a plan together on how we're going to organize around this. So what are our short-term goals? Maybe a short-term goal is just to bring one other person to a school board meeting to give public comment. All right, but then the long-term goal is going to be like actually improving those school lunches or those bus routes, and really just having a vision of what we want to see. Simone, I'm gonna I'll take your I see you have your hand raised there.
I was just gonna ask, can you blow it down a little bit so I can see the full thing of it? Because right now it's just cut off and you can only see half.
Oh, I'm
Oh
not
no, hold on,
sure
wait. I
how.
can do it on my end. I can do it on my end. I see it now. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you're good. You're good. I was gonna say I'm glad you're able to because I don't know if I'd be able to do that. And we're gonna send out the slides and everything too for y'all to look over again. But okay, cool, cool. So that is that. I'm gonna pass it over to Safara to talk about leadership development.
Yes, I'm very passionate about leadership development. So, as you have like found some issues that you are wanting to campaign behind, maybe you are starting to do some of that power mapping. So, looking at who's the decision maker. You probably have now found out that the superintendent is kind of like a liaison between the rest of the school district and the school board. So you're trying to probably start meeting these people, get face name recognition, all of that. So this is like Drew said earlier, this is a really crucial point for leadership development. And what you are wanting to do in this stage is start creating the norms and the roles in which people are going to fill to make your campaign and slash organization, however you decide that you want to organize. That is when, yeah, so you're finalizing your norms there. So how you're going to act in community. I know for like Student Advocacy Center, we always start our meetings with like specific, like our guidelines, like as a reminder, and everybody okays them before we start the meeting. So we have like one mic, which means no one speaks. So we try to make sure people don't speak over each other. Open heart and kindness, empathy, all of those things. And this is also where you start looking at what roles do we need. So if you are doing a campaign about school lunches, so we might maybe you have somebody who has access to different databases because of their job. Let's say they're like a lawyer or something. They would be really great for research. So that is a role that person can take on. And it's important that when you appoint these leaders to these different roles, it could be social media, it could be community education, which is kind of what we're doing right now. It can look like a spokesperson who is speaking to the media. There's a strategist. I know Urban Core Collective has strategists on their team. You want to make sure that those people who want to take those roles or are already in those roles are kind of inoculated into these norms so that they are embodying exactly how you want and have agreed to as a community you want this leadership to go. Some of that can also look like setting up how you make decision making. Are you doing a whole everyone gets one vote decision making that is pretty horizontal leadership, or you want to do more hierarchical? Are there a small core of people that make decisions? All of that is done during this leadership development where you are I like to think of it as you're creating the container for which this living thing that is organizing and this campaign, community stewardship, all of that lives in. Yes. Sorry that I just kind of spoke a lot all at once. But that's how I like to think of leadership development. And then, Kath, if you want to move on to action. So when you have these roles filled, this is also kind of like an ongoing thing. So you can have you can have roles that you've identified that you're like, okay, we need this, this, and this, but maybe we're missing a press person, or maybe we're missing, maybe we're missing, maybe you decided that you want an educator in a decision-making room or whatever. Like maybe we're missing this person. When you are then moving forward and thinking of actions, you want to think about what is going to be your ask, what is the demand, what is the core essence of what you are getting together for. And while like sometimes it can be your first thought is like, well, that's just the campaign. Like we're just the action is for better lunches or whatever. But it's really important to not just do actions willy-nilly. They're responding to the root cause of with a start to a solution. So as a group, we brainstorm what kind of near-term action would best solve the problem and implement the plan. So it is when you're planning something like this, you want it to be specific, or specific in both like what the intention is, but also is this going to be a multi-step thing? You want to map out what decision makers are being targeted through this action, and then who is being targeted with the ask or the demand, and how we're activating turnout and engagement. So there's like a big planning process that happens here. And then you want to understand turnout, which is how many people you got out for that action, the supporters and people, and maybe even new members that heard about the action and wanted to sniff out and see what was up and wanted to support. And that's an opportunity for you to gain a new member. So it's also important for someone to be available to talk to while that action is happening. Maybe you have someone in your group who their role is community outreach, and they're the ones to usher in these folks during these actions and during these implementation plans. And actions can be creative. They're not just, we're all rallying in front of the school board, or we're doing a picket line around the school board meeting or whatever. It can also look like phone banking. It can look like email campaigns. You can absolutely do a march, but there was something that Urban Core Collective did the other day I think it was last month. I think Drew was there, so you might know better than me, or was part of the planning. But Urban Core Collective out in Grand Rapids did like a rate my school board, basically, or rate my district, where they had people flood in to the school board meeting and literally like go down the checklist and report to the school board member during public comment, like, this is our rating of our district. And I believe it was for transportation and food, right, Drew?
Yes. Yep. Those issues specifically.
Yeah. So that's something that's really creative, where I know when I saw that, or when Betsaida, the organizer, told me about that, I got excited because I was like, oh, I've never thought of doing an action like that. That's really cool. And there have been our YAM program for Student Advocacy Center out in Detroit. Pristine guided and facilitated, basically. Her kids did a complete like interactive play of what like the ideal school would be, and they presented that in front of their school board when they announced that there was going to be a new high school building being built. So there are a lot of really cool ways, especially youth-driven spaces. Like kiddos come up with some really amazing things, and there is inspiration everywhere to do a successful action. And Kath, I can go to the next slide. I believe I'm taking this one too. Yes. Yeah. So evaluations and celebrations, and Drew hit on this earlier. And it's pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. You want to know how you're doing. So evaluations, you'll see one at the end of this training, are really important so that you can gauge what needs to be tweaked. And that can be in leadership, that can be in the way that you design a training, that can be in the way that you executed an action. Any of those and beyond can be a reason why you would need that. So the whole process is basically, it helps people decompress and debrief from the action or campaign, event, whatever. And it helps you learn and bring in new ideas to the table for future things. And it also allows you to sit in community. So that rest and refuel celebratory part of it is a comeback to community, because when you're campaigning and you're doing organizing, it's exhausting. And some of us are paid and some of us are volunteered, and across the board it is exhausting, but especially for those who are not being paid for and it's volunteer based, that's even more labor that you are exercising, of course. So it's important to always return back to community, celebrate, mourn, uplift, all of those things, as well as, you know, if you have capacity, like that's when we figure out what is coming up with folks when you're organizing, because organizing isn't just this plain stale thing, it's emotional. And that is where you find out that, oh, maybe there are some parents that have trauma with the school system that they weren't aware of because they haven't had to be inside a school for a while. Maybe there are parents that are dealing with illiteracy and they're trying to help navigate their kids, which I know is huge in Michigan, of adult illiteracy. And, you know, that's very scary to deal with when you're like, wow, I actually can't advocate for my kid as much because I might not be able to read what they need, or I might not be able to navigate the websites, or not be XYZ. And that's where, when we are in celebration and evaluation from what we're doing, we are also taking like a self, what is that called? Inventory, basically. And we're checking back in with each other and we're saying, hey, what do you need? Like, how can we support each other better in this situation? Or how did you feel that you know, how were you surprised how you come out of this campaign, or how are you surprised at what affected you? All of those questions are extremely important to ask when you're coming back to that. And I will pass over to Drew.
Yeah, I just want to pause for a sec too, because I know we gave a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions about the organizing cycle? Any aspects of that?
I don't have any questions. I just have some suggestions. Maybe we should take some sleeping bags and sleep outside the school to make sure our kids are being handled with great care.
I
Maybe
love
that.
that. I
Maybe
love
that
it.
open their eyes up.
That could be a very cool action.
That's a great example of a creative action. I love that. I know right now we have our like Right to Read series, so that's an example of an action where we're having folks do, you know, screenings of this documentary about literacy, right? Which is still a campaign going on. So if anybody's interested in that, I can share info. So far, I had a couple screenings.
We sure did. Sure did.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Cool. Any other questions before I move on?
That with 482 Ford. I think I'm in there with them. Yeah.
Yeah, they did. I think they did at least one. They might have done a couple more though.
Yeah, they did
Yeah.
screenings, and they also had a partner with Detroit Parent Network and had a building where they invited people out and stuff. Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great. Cool. If there are no questions right now, definitely feel free. We'll be sending out our contact info after this. Don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. But you know, with all this information now, I think the question is, you know, what can I do? So we have a couple of examples of next steps for y'all. So definitely the first one is that building community and listening. So like what we did at the top of the training, and what I suggested to is just, you know, going out there and just talking to other parents and caregivers and community members, and just listening to what their issues are in the school community. And in building community with those folks, you know, maybe it's over coffee or, you know, beer if you drink, right? You know, something like that can really be helpful. Starting to get some things done and taking stock of the issues, and seeing, you know, what is their vision for the schools and what do they want to see happen. That is, I will say that is probably one of the most important steps of organizing. Absolutely. So we can go down to the next one. And so like we mentioned, as part of that cycle is doing research, right? So something that we are going to be doing a lot of work around coming May and June are there school board budget hearings happening. And so that is a chance for the community to actually go and talk to the school board about what the budget is going to look like. So as we discussed earlier in the training, funding is so important for what goes on in our schools. That is actually a chance to like go and have a say in that. So definitely be looking out for those school board budget hearings happening. Y'all will still hear me, right? My headphones just died.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I heard my AirPods make the sound. Cool. And then that next part is going to be asking questions and speaking up together. So, go to the school board meetings. Like we discussed earlier, so many decisions get made there. Start going there and just hold those leaders accountable, for our school community and our kids and everything. And just start to ask questions and share your concerns. And it can really make a huge difference. All right. So those are some next steps for y'all. We also have a couple different, we can move to the next slide. Thank you so much, Kath. Some other things to do. So speaking with the MEJC organizer in your area. So, I think as a part of the sign up for this, you listed your school district. MEJC has a whole network of folks around the state. We'll connect you with somebody that does work in your area, knows about the issues happening where you live. The monthly checklist. So we do have some of those steps that I listed off there. We have a nice, cool checklist doc to look at. I'll share this out in follow up as well. Right to read screening. So this is that campaign I was talking about where folks can sign up to host a documentary showing about literacy. And then we've also connected it to things like book bans that we're seeing in a lot of districts, as well as culturally relevant curriculum. So curriculum that actually, faces the really hard stuff that's happened in our country's history and really, gives accurate information about, all groups in our country and in our world and things like that, and just gives accurate information. So those right to read screenings are a great opportunity to start to meet those other parents and caregivers in your area and do that listening. So that's an idea I'll offer to y'all, and I'll throw that the link
put
to
it in the
host one of those. Oh, thank you. You're on it.
I'm on
Appreciate
it.
you. You're on it. As well, and then the final thing that I will suggest is related to our Right to Read campaign. We're having a lobby day. So we're actually going to Lansing with a network of our folks to go and talk to legislators about our issues related especially to funding. But as we learned earlier, funding relates to so much. So that's a chance to go to Lansing, speak with legislators, speak with other people that feel the same as you. So everybody here is invited. I'd love to see you there. It's going to be a really great day. I think people leave that feeling so empowered and feeling like they can make some real change in their communities. So I definitely suggest going to that lobby day if you're able to do that. That's going to be on April. I'm going to actually put it on here. It's going to be on April 30th, if I can change it. But we'll send you that link as
in
well.
the chat.
And you rock. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's going to be on April 30th at the end of this month. So anybody's able to make it, get that off work. It's going to be a really awesome time. So those are some things to do. We're going to send any links. Safar, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, I'm gonna put the evaluation in the chat. Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, thank y'all so much for being here, small and mighty crowd. Thank y'all for being so vocal and being just so present and willing to share your experiences and your woes and your curiosity about organizing. And I really just want to encourage y'all to be persistent, but don't beat yourself up. You are not the savior of your community. Your community works together to advocate for each other. And so when you feel beaten down that people aren't showing up, or you feel a little maybe lost in translation a little bit, can be diligent and be persistent in what this work is. And I guarantee you will connect. Even if it's just one person, you will deeply connect with that person. And that is a transformative connection when you meet somebody who is willing to work with you and envision a better community for our schools. Great question, Sin. Who makes school handbook, school board, or superintendent? School board. School board will make policy for your schools, especially when it comes down to discipline. Simone, did you have a question or anything?
Yes, the Google Doc that you just put in the chat is asking to grant access.
Oh, you know what? Can you request access? I'm sorry, I don't know why. Is anybody else able to get?
So
Let
we
me
all
see
had to
here.
do it, and I submitted mine, and nothing didn't happen.
Yeah, I had to request access too.
Try
Cool.
that link. Let me see. I always have issues with the Google Forms are like not in the same format as
Yeah,
that wouldn't work any better.
Drew. If y'all can't see, Drew
Second
put
one,
a
the
new.
second one worked. The second
Okay.
one worked.
Great.
Great. So sorry about that. I always have issues with those. Yeah, so appreciate y'all filling that out. That definitely helps us make this training better as we continue to do it. And I appreciate, like Safara said, like sharing your experiences and asking questions and participating, like makes these so much better. So please never feel hesitant to do that when you're on a training. Promise you the trainer appreciates it, and I really appreciate it. So thanks
And
so
if
much,
anybody
everyone.
wants it, my email is also in the chat.
Yeah. I'm going to be sending all the information and documents that we sent today. So don't worry, you're not going to lose anything. Awesome. I think that's everything. Simone, did you have your hand raised from before?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
No, I just want to make sure. I didn't want to skip over you if you had anything. Well, great. Well,
Thank you
I will
all
give.
for being here.
Yeah, we'll give you 9 minutes of your night back. So thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate it. And we'll be in touch. Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Kath. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night, Nikita.